Real people, real radio.
Initiating the truth frequency.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Everything we thought was real is a lie.
Everything is a lie. Nothing is real.
We need some truth.
Where can we find the truth? Over here.
The quest for truth is an adventurous one if approached in that fashion. Trials and tribulations await. Walls that social normality had placed before you block the light of realism from shining through. The tedious process of chipping away at the walls lets streams of light peek through. A light so bright it singes the skin to the degree one has to reconstruct the wall to block it. In short, you can't handle the truth alone. But through the networking of information, together we can rise above the wall before you, filtering the light to a tolerable level.
What's up, brothers and sisters? Truthers and adorners of the 10-4 hat, because we don't believe in magic bullets or buildings that fall like that. I'm Kenneth Webb, a.k.a.
ChangeDaChannel.
Along with my co-host,
The man, the myth, the legend,
Scott Lopez. What's going on, brother?
Hey, man, what's going on, brother?
Oh, man, we got a show for you tonight. Joining us tonight is our special guest, a good friend and brother from TFR's Wednesday night, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific time show, Down the Rabbit Hole, as well as his website, federaljack.com. A very astute soldier in our battle for truth, Popeye. What's going on, brother?
Gentlemen.
Oh, man. Hey, the madness never ends. I mean, is the world crazy or just me? Or am I getting older? I don't know. It just seems to get crazier and crazier by the day.
No, I want to move to a deserted island.
Oh.
I told Radchick we have to build a fortress on a deserted island. There's only one problem with that. Our luck, it would be the island that Lost took place on. So, be running from like smoke monsters and things like that.
Yeah. And as always, I want to give a big shout out to the chat room and all the wonderful folks joining us at truthfrequencyradio.com/chat if you want to join it. Man, I love the guys and girls out there. No doubt they're off their hinges. And everyone else out there listening on 90.7 FM in Denver, Colorado, and 97.3 FM in Eugene, Oregon, and all around in that. Now, gentlemen, as I was going through last week, and the weekend, man, I get in these zones, seeing everything that's going on in the world, differently, different points of view. And I get really extreme into them, and this past week I started getting tactically into it. I often drift into an extreme viewing point on things that go on around me. For example, sometimes I see things from the opposition, the turds that shouldn't be, where they came from, why they are the way they are. From, in their life and their upbringings, all this, sometimes it's seeing things from the sheeple's point of view, just to, this past week has been purely tactical. And so it got me to thinking about the progress the New World Order's made. Right now, when I speak of the New World Order, I'm not talking about this thing with the clubhouse, T-shirts, bumper stickers, anything like that. I'm talking about the abstract concept. It's like love and hate. I mean, which is really defined by whoever's doing the loving and the hate. I look at the New World Order as, basically about, what the rulers have done, their concept for a new world order, and world domination is basically what it always boils down to. I mean, they've used everything from slavery, mental slavery, war, proxy war, brainwashing. Anything that they could throughout time. So what I wanted us to do, we talk about, events that are going on around the world now. And I wanted to, because I've been in this mode, so I thought it was really cool to have Popeye on here as well. And because he has a lot of history, knows a lot, and he can recall it really fast. Like me, I'm just, I'll know something, but I can't recall it. So anyhow, I want to talk about where they are right now in their progression and talk about the tactics that they are using now. And we can also reflect on some of that history, things that they have done in the past and all of that. And the thing that really, I think, really pushed me towards looking at it tactically, looking at everything tactically, is all of the crazy protesting and rioting and all of that stuff over Trump this past week. Excuse me. I always find myself feeling like I'm taking up for Trump in some way, shape, or form. And which sucks because I hate.
I know, yeah. I'm like that too. It's like, man, I don't want to be that guy that looks like I'm taking up for Trump, but it's like when Piers Morgan said good things about cannabis and put Ann Coulter in her place, and it's like, man, I don't want to side with that turd, but he made a point, you know.
Right. I mean, but this whole thing has been just off the chain, and I feel like I've been taking. So instead of taking up for him, I'm trying to step back and look tactically, because I think more than likely this is just for our viewing pleasure, you know. But just how these people can really just get away with, like, all of the people saying, it's Trump's fault, Trump reason why these riots are happening, Trump this, Trump that, and everybody on all sides is sitting there pointing at him like he did something. And I'm sitting there logically looking, and I'm thinking like, I don't think I've seen him really do anything like that. You know, I'm kind of just taken aback. I was like, so the only thing I could figure out was, you know, the other week you had the Koch brothers and all those cats, you know, all those right-wing elites, you know, get together, chip in the pot $70-some million to try to take Trump out, supposedly, right? And then all of a sudden, here are all these protests and all these violent protests. And you got Soros group, you know, MoveOn.org or whatever those cats are coming out doing all of this. I mean, what do you make of it, Popeye?
Well, first of all, it's all bullshit. Second of all, the whole thing about Trump being responsible for, you know, we're worried that violence is going to happen at his rallies, and Marco Rubio and all these other D-bags in the GOP and the Democrats and the mainstream media. When you see them all teaming up against somebody, you should wonder why. And I'm not saying that Trump's going to come in and save everybody. Voting for somebody is not going to solve our problems. Voting for a new schmuck in a suit, even if he says good things, is not going to solve our problems. We have to change our perspective on that. But that being set aside, this whole thing is a farce, and the attacks on Trump are logical fallacies. It's an ad hominem attack. It's to the man. It's not addressing anything that he actually says. They're saying, well, his campaign is causing this division. I don't believe you could really logically and honestly, I mean, they'll do it anyway, but you can't really, in the public face, blame the division in this country on Donald Trump. I don't agree with the guy on many things. I'm not voting for him. I'm not getting paid like some alternative media outlets. It almost seems to take up for the guy day after day. But I will say this. He's pissing somebody off. And what they're doing, whether or not the whole election process is a farce or not, I mean, it is. This ought to show everybody. If Ron Paul's thing didn't show, that showed the people in the independent alternative media. It showed people in the libertarian, well, maybe not all libertarians, but in the liberty-oriented mindset that are still willing to vote. A lot of them became disenfranchised with voting and realized the reality after 2012. But this with Trump should wake a lot of people up. It should show a lot of people that are hardcore GOPers that you watch. I'm willing to bet they're going to do whatever they can to steal the election, like the nomination from him, so he can't get the GOP nomination. They did it to Ron Paul. They'll just change the rules and they'll put some dick like Marco Rubio in there or some other schmuck who means nothing. And the reason they don't want Trump in there is it doesn't even matter if he's electable or not. Let's put all that out. Let's put who would actually become president aside for a second. They're afraid of what he brings to the table because he gets people fired up about real issues. They don't want that. They want people to argue over stupid issues, the same things that people have argued over time and time again. And the powers that shouldn't be want division. And to a degree, this does help it too. Yes, it does. I mean, this whole thing is a farce. But see, who's controlling the narrative? The mainstream media. Who controls it all the time? The media.
Exactly.
It doesn't seem like anybody's buying it anymore, though, I mean, because no matter what they've thrown at him, I mean, his poll numbers just stay up, and people just basically have been blowing off everything that the mainstream media has been throwing at him. Because if you would have thought about this, like just last election cycle or any other time, I mean, that the stuff that they're doing to him would have completely destroyed a candidate like immediately, but it's not working. So you just see this total panic, this whole panic of the power structure.
Yeah, I thinking tactically, I'm just sitting here thinking this is all a show for us. This is to pull people in to make them think like, wow, they're treating Trump bad and that's wrong. So they pulling people back in. This is strictly tactically. They're making it look like all of these people are against him. I mean, this is one side. This is one tactic that I see as a possibility. As them sitting there really pushing like everybody's against Trump, when it's the whole time this has been the plan all along, to keep us separated and all this. And the other side of the coin is like, yeah, it's either that or they're really getting nervous about the momentum he's got going and everything.
Yeah, because Gingrich said he wasn't part of the club. He wasn't initiated into the secret society. So, that kind of makes you wonder.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. But, man, what is it that if it is indeed he's legit, he's running, he just wants it to put up on his mantle that he's going to do this, or maybe he actually really cares about this country, or whatever the reason is, let's just say the guy is legit, why? Why? How can they blatantly put all of these things out there and people actually believe it? Because it's got to be some kind of gauge and identifier of where we are as a society when people can be so easily drawn in on lies. Blatant lies that doesn't even make any sense.
We live in idiocracy, Ken.
Oh, it's horrible, brother. Horrible.
Go to the store, bro. Like when I go to the store, sometimes I'm just. It's an interesting trip. Let's just say that it's usually a social experiment, to say the least. And by the way, to answer your question of from earlier about with all these groups, and by the way, George Soros is in there funding groups and stuff. So. All these groups and that whole thing was staged, where all those protesters were out front. How come nobody's protesting any of the effed up things our government is doing? But let's blame Trump. Put all the focus on him. Yeah, people, logical fallacies, study them. Otherwise, you'll literally fall into physical versions of that in your own real life, not just a debate with someone online or a conversation with somebody, but an entire thing, an entire experience could be a logical fallacy-filled lie. It's amazing what they keep in front of us.
Yeah, like why weren't they protesting the fact that people get murdered every day in Chicago in record numbers?
Right. Well, why not protest that? Because of its guns. Oh, wait, but that's the highest city with gun control in the country, the tightest gun control rules on the books, and yet they have violence out the ass. Oh, what about that?
They're worried about an old guy throwing a punch at a Trump rally, but they're not worried about all these gangbangers, killing everybody daily.
Maybe if they enforced the laws that were already in the books in Chicago, there wouldn't be a problem. And if the prosecutors actually did their jobs, maybe you'd have less problems. But there's that.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like none of this is based on anything. I'm all about free speech. I'm all about protesting. Even if it's something that I don't really agree with, I do. I believe everybody should be able to do this, but these people don't have a daggone clue. And everything that any of the protesters out there, they don't really they're not informed at all. It's no different than the anti-war protests. You could go and ask a bunch of people at anti-war protests back in the day. So, and they were just out there. They don't have a clue. Oh, we're against the war, and that's about it. Not educated at all. And they're sitting there saying that if Trump became president, whatever, I'm not going to let up on him. If he does something, I'm going to call him out. I'm not voting for Trump. I'm not voting for any of them turds, man. No way.
You could become president. And if you did a crappy job, I would be on you and riding you like a show pony until you did what you were supposed to be doing. And so I would expect everybody to be doing the same thing. I would expect Scott to be, on your tail telling you what to do. I would expect if you were the president, it doesn't matter. You're one of my closest friends. I would still be on your ass if you were doing a horrible job.
Exactly. Right? And I don't even with that, what we do, if we're wrong about something, if I'm wrong about something and somebody tells me I'm wrong and they, it's like, hey, no, you're wrong. Here's the right information. I want to know it. But, these people don't know jack. They're saying that he's a racist. Okay. And I'm sitting here thinking like, well, I mean, maybe he is. But I haven't seen anything that he has said that has been. I mean, he has a lot of minority supporters, right? I mean, I haven't seen anything that says. I mean, that thing with the KKK and all of that crap. I mean, he said he had a problem with his earpiece. I'm thinking logically. I ain't got no pony in this race. I'm sitting there thinking logically, okay, it wouldn't make any sense for this guy to sit up there and say, he's not going to denounce the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, how would that make him look in today's society? How would that make him look? He's not going to do that. He wants to win. He wouldn't do that even if he really believed that or he really did support them. But they focus on that. They focus on, that, he's against religion, Muslims, stuff like that. And I was like, nah, the only thing he really said that I've heard, and I follow this stuff pretty closely, is that, he didn't want to let the wrong people in. So he wanted to build a wall, and he wanted, people who come in, into the country, he wanted to make sure that they were well vetted. I'm like, well, if you're going to have a country, it makes sense. But and he said, about cutting all Muslims off from coming into the country. It was cutting them off until they could be well vetted, which would make sense to me. I mean, if you're going to have boundaries and borders and have a sovereign nation, just like every other country does, all around the world, they do it. So I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, I haven't seen it. The only thing that I've seen that he did that really bothered me, and I thought was kind of when he kind of made fun of a mentally retarded kid or something. He mimicked him or something like that. That was a couple of months ago, and I didn't really get the whole story, but that's something that's like, okay, now that's something that you could go for. But the rest of the stuff, these people are just out there, and the whole time the fat cat's sitting back laughing. The fat cats are the New World Order sitting back laughing at all this because here they go. They got us once again fighting each other over race and religion and sexualities and whether you're a man or you're a woman and all of this stuff. And now they're paying for us to riot against each other and protest till it's going to take a life of its own. And I'm telling you, we only in the primaries. This thing is going to get crazy.
Scott, I know you probably heard it. Ken, you might have heard it too. I did a show, two shows on this last year about the racial divide, and I played the audio from Mae Brussel with the King Alfred Plan, dating back to the book came out. I think the book came out in the 70s, but it was like dating back to the late 60s. And basically, it was a fictional story, but the King Alfred Plan, and this is from the old school Black Panthers, not the new Black Panther Party, which is totally controlled and contrived. I'm talking about the old school Black Panthers. I actually had them contact me. A couple of them reach out to me after I did the first show about Mae Brussel, the first time I aired this back years ago. And they confirmed for me. They said, you're correct. You're right on the money. One of them contacted me and told me that he had passed out flyers on the subway warning about the King Alfred Plan. And basically it was this plan for martial law in the United States based off of a race war. And when you listen to this plan, now remember, again, this dates back to this fictional book. And if I remember correctly, the book it was in came out in like the early 70s. And May had done a broadcast in the 80s about it. And I've played her broadcast where she broke it down because you hear her talking about this. Remember, this is, it's good to air these older things because it's like a time capsule because you can go back now and look and be like, wow, she was so on point. Well, she's reading this plan, this quote unquote fictional plan, and it's got 10 different regions in the country. 10 different regions? Where have I heard that before? 10 different, FEMA regions. So it's, even though they portray it, and they blew it off back in the day when information was put out there about it. Oh, it's fictional. It's fictional. It's interesting how this fictional story foretold what we now have, which are FEMA regions. I mean, I didn't know about FEMA regions back when I was a kid. We weren't taught, oh, there's 10, the country's going to be broken up into 10 regions in case of martial law or anything. You know what I mean? So it's not like that was common knowledge. And here she was doing a broadcast on it, putting it out there. And now you have it where martial law plans, things like that, FEMA regions. That's at least the FEMA regions themselves. Maybe not, they don't say martial law. They may say, in the event of an emergency when they talk about it publicly. But we know that the FEMA regions exist. They openly talk about us having 10 FEMA regions. How many of us joke, I'm in FEMA region 4, I'm in FEMA region 6, I'm in FEMA region 8, right? And here's this old story with it. And the whole point of me bringing this up is in those shows I spent 2 hours each time exposing how this is a huge game of chess. That's what we see going on right now. And they need division. You know when Ferguson kicked off and the whole black versus white thing got all popular again? Right about the time when everybody started questioning why the cops had MRAPs. That's when it kicked off. Go back and look when Ferguson kicked off. And then look in the news for about 2-3 weeks before that. You had like Republican GOPers, Democrats, everybody going, hey, how come the police have riot gear and, they're getting assault rifles and they have MRAPs and
exactly and look at how they put down any of that people pointing that out, how that has been put down, because now if you try to get into any sort of police accountability or question anything like that, you're automatically labeled as like a Black Lives Matter sympathizer. And if you go the other way and you say, hey, these people need to quit walking up on police officers sitting in their cars and shooting them in the head, then all of a sudden you're like, you're some racist bigot, bootlicker. So they've completely divided that discussion.
Yeah, it's back to you either with us or you're with the terrorists. There's no room outside of the box for people.
It's either choice A or choice B, and there's nothing in between. You can't question anything without being put in a box and a label.
And the only third position you can take in any of it, besides being a sympathizer or being a racist, is just being anti-government. That's the label they put on anybody is anti-government. I'm like, I'm not anti-government. Stop calling me anti-government. I have never seen where this republic has really had a chance to work enough to see if a government would be feasible, if it could work, because it's been rotten to the core the entire time. And anytime anybody ever tried to change it, they got popped or, whatever happened. But it's like they put you in that anti-government thing. And it's like, no, I'm anti-turd all day long. It's the people in the government. It's not the government itself. That's the structured constitution. It's the structure of, the government. That's kind of, the
government is a hammer, Ken. It's a tool. So being mad at, quote unquote, the government is like being pissed off at a hammer if someone uses it to kill somebody with it. A hammer is just a tool. You could build a house with it or you can murder somebody with it.
Kind of like a gun.
Tool, but exactly. It's what you do with the tool. Same thing with information. Information just is. It's what you do with it. Whether you choose to be a good human being or a bad human being is up to you. That's the ultimate. Ultimately, just like in the Matrix, like it was explained thoroughly in that trilogy. People need to go back and watch those. I've done shows about it. They are allegories. It's all about choice. And if you choose to take a hammer and build a house with it and give a homeless person a home, well, you did something useful and good. If you use that hammer and you beat someone to death with it, well, now you're doing something evil, right? The hammer is just what it is. Government is the same way. It's just a tool. Mm. And I mean, elections the whole thing's a joke. I mean, Trump gets the response that he does, whether or not you like him or not. He gets the response he does because people are pissed off. And people are starting to realize that they're getting screwed. And the powers that shouldn't be know that, and their time is running out. And that's why they're pushing this agenda so hardcore, because they need us dumbed down and stupefied in order to keep their power. If everybody starts to realize that everything's bullshit, guess what? Their house of cards falls to the ground. Oh, and speaking of house of cards, to bring this up, this should be the government's motto. And this is going to be a spoiler for anybody who hasn't seen season 4 of the Netflix series.
I saw it. I just watched it the other day.
But to quote President Frank Underwood at the end of season 4, we don't submit to terror. We make the terror.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just thought I would throw that out there.
And if the people out there who haven't seen that, you should really check the House of Cards out. I mean, that's something that is a good watch. Watch the whole thing, and I mean that's how it seems. It does seem like when I watch it, I'm sitting there going like, Yep, this is how the government, the people in the government run it. These are the things they do. This is what I've studied for decades. This is what declassified government documents have proved to us. I mean, there's no doubt it's good to watch.
That last episode itself was like a documentary almost. It was showing you there's a political scandal going on that's going to unseat the sitting president. And then what happens? Terrorism.
Oh, yeah. But we're getting ready to go to break, guys. We're going to continue this conversation on the flip side and break it down, the strategies and tactics that these turds use to divide us, keep us fighting amongst each other while they continue with their world domination. I'm Kenneth Webb, a.k.a. ChangeDaChannel, along with co-host Scott Lopez and my man Popeye. We'll catch you on the flip side.
For Truth with Joe Bannister. Saturday on Truth Frequency Radio.
We are back. I'm Kenneth Webb, a.k.a. ChangeDaChannel, along with co-host Scott Lopez and our special guest, Popeye. Now, I want to remind everyone out there that we're listener-supported. So if you want to show a little love, head to truthfrequencyradio.com/quest for truth and hook it up. You can get unlimited high-quality downloads for all the shows on TFR and keep the station ad-free. Now, before we went to break, we were talking about the New World Order turds and all their shenanigans and how the divide that they're doing now. I mean, you got the divide and conquer going on. You got the fear-mongering, because that's another tactic that they use on us, fear-mongering. Always keep us scared, telling us to be calm and everything's great. But fear-mongering. You got the problem, reaction, solution. You got those things going on. They're always creating a problem where there is no problem, but they're creating it. Then they expect a reaction so they can swoop in and have the solution. I mean, you got
now here's a little scenario though that I've been thinking of lately, and I kind of want to get you guys' take on this because it's just something that I don't know. It's been going on in my head, and I don't know. I sort of maybe see a possibility with this, but I just want to get you guys' take on this. So this summer, you think that they're going to probably ratchet up race riots and get some sort of a big emergency situation going on by the fall, and at that point, you think maybe Obama might have to stay in there a little longer to, mitigate the emergency because the elections are all screwed up because of all these riots and nobody's, none of the candidates are safe and all that. Do you think that could be a little trick up their sleeve?
Well, I think that, it's always a possibility. But we hear this every time when Bush was in office. Remember when he was in office before, he's like, man, Bush not going to leave office. He's going to take a third term. He's going to do something.
You always get that.
But I do believe that this summer is going to be off the chain with violence. I do believe that they're really pushing and putting a lot of money into it and really pushing people. They've been working on it for a long time to divide, and especially the races. And with the border, to the African Americans out there, to even isolating white folks, victimizing them, and all of the wordplay that's used. It's like, you can't say anything. We're not racist. You're the racist. If you have white skin, you're the racist. And I'm not talking about all the minorities out there, because I have plenty of African American friends. I have plenty of friends all around the world, but they're pushing that, and people are buying it, because if you victimize people and you push them far enough, they're going to react, because that is the desired reaction. That's what they're going to do. And they're going to sit back and pour the money into it, and it's going to be like we have never seen before, is what I think. But
I've never seen it like this before.
Honestly, I thought we were past this crap, man. I don't understand until they started pushing all this stuff and making younger folks feel the way that they do, until they did all of these things that they did, all these tactics that they have used, especially over the last 8 years. They have pushed this thing and made it, and it's built and built and built. So, yeah, I see that. But I don't see Obama. He's pulled his time. He's going to get out. They need a new face puppet man in there. Now, if they go for that third term thing, if that was the case, if they did pull that card out and martial law and all of this craziness in the street, and they went for it, then it's going to be a different world. It's going to be, I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm not 100% right all the time. Heck, I'm barely ever right on predictions, but I do say that it would be a different world, and we would be in for an entirely different, even in our movement, the quest for truth. Things would come down on us, even trying to keep the peace and trying to show people like, hey, man, they're just getting you fighting against each other. We would have so much stuff coming down on us. The third term president over something like that, that's when it's going to be a big jump. That would be like a 9/11 kind of scenario where the world's going to change and it ain't never going back. What do you think, Popeye?
Well, first of all, to answer you, we were beyond all this bullshit. We were. This is ridiculous. Martin Luther King Jr. is rolling over in his grave right now.
Hang on just a second, Popeye, real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt you, and I'm not being rude or anything, but I just have to throw this in there when you said that yeah, we were way past that. You were talking about Black Panthers, the old Black Panthers earlier. I played in a band with the Moses Brothers, 3 brothers doing a cappella, old Motown kind of stuff. Now, these cats, old Black Panthers, all day long, they know all about the racism and stuff like that, and they were totally different. We were all past that. Everybody's going to have racism and sexism, and you're going to have all that stuff. But they knew to come from a different time period, but they knew that everything had changed. We were past that.
Again, Ferguson shows this. And I'm not saying that there's not, that racism was completely eradicated. But first of all, the myth and the idea that America invented racism is not only completely wrong, but it's factually, completely 100% incorrect. Slavery goes back to as far back as history is recorded. And I mean going back to ancient Sumer and those clay tablets and their stories. The stories of the Anunnaki coming down here, in that day, whether or not you choose to believe that is your call, but that's the Sumerian creation story. And according to them, mankind as a whole was tweaked genetically to be slaves. So the idea that America invented slavery within the past few hundred years and it's all the white man's fault is bullshit. If you look at African slavery, when people in Africa were rounded up and sold into slavery, a lot of the people that were doing the rounding up were other black Africans. And yes, it was white Europeans like the British and Dutch East India Company that partook in this and that bought many of the slaves. And I'm not giving any of them any credit, but let's look at this realistically. But none of this is looked at realistically. It's looked at through the lens of the people that are trying to twist the narrative and create this divide. Look, my grandmother was in a concentration camp. Do I walk around kicking German people in the face? No. That would be stupid and ignorant of me. Guess what? I have German in my family. So do I fist fight with my own family members at the Thanksgiving table or during Christmas? No. This is stupid. This is absolutely dumb. Look, we can learn from our history, and we should learn from it, but running around acting like you're oppressed today because people were oppressed for real 50, 60 years ago. If you want to see oppression, why don't you look what the civil rights movement went through? That's oppression. That's racism. Seeing those people just legally going out there and protesting, using their right to protest, their constitutional right. And by the way, it's really just their innate human right that's backed by the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't actually give you any rights. It just enumerates them. You already had them since the time you were born. That's what the document actually says. When people are like, well, the Constitution gives me rights. No, you had them when you came into this world. That was the whole belief behind said document.
I concur with that. I've always been outright that I don't need a piece of paper to tell me anything, but I am glad that the Bill of Rights are there because it does put people in check since they want to go that route. And as far as I'm an Native American, Cherokee Indian. My great grandmother was full-blooded Cherokee. And I'm not sitting here squalling about all the bad stuff that happened to them. I mean, the Trail of Tears, all of that. It's I'm not going to hide from it. I'm not going to ignore it, but I'm not going to, blame somebody who's alive today for all of that stuff. It's insane.
Well, and this is all contrived. Look, again, yes, there is racism still before all this stuff was pumped up. There was racism in this country, but more and more people were realizing that we had more in common than we do differences. And the powers that shouldn't be didn't want that. And one of the biggest things was when it came to police brutality, because it used to be this myth that police brutality only happened to minorities. You'd hear white people, I don't understand. I don't have that problem. And to a large degree, that was true because back in the day, I should say lower income people as well, but because there were people that were white or are white that are harassed by the cops, but lower income. But for the most part, a large section of America didn't feel that. But over the past 20 years, like Russell Means said, welcome to the reservation. Now you're all starting to see what the natives were put through, and then black people were put through. And other cultures too, not just those two. But now it's everyone. The plantation isn't on the country. The whole country is the plantation, and we're all on it. That's the reservation. That's what everybody's talking about. We're all equal in the fact that we are slaves under the thumbs of these very few powerful people. I mean, who here doesn't have to, who listening doesn't go to work? If you don't pay your bills, if you don't go to work and get a paycheck and you don't pay your bills, what happens? You lose everything. They'll take away your house. Your family will be homeless. You'll have no food. And I don't want to hear that's just the way of things. You're a wage slave who runs the banks, who has all the loans on your house or on your credit cards. So who are we the slaves to? You see, people were waking up to that, and it scared the powers that shouldn't be. Again, they were waking up to the police brutality and saying, why do the cops need MRAPs? And people were realizing that it wasn't just a black thing or a Latino thing or a Native American thing. They realized that, when little old ladies were getting shot in church parking lots. There was a couple years ago, there was a white lady, I don't know, older from what I remember. I think she was in her 50s or 60s. And for whatever reason, the cops pulled her over, pulled a gun on her, and they scared her. And I believe she went to go take off or whatever, and they unloaded through the car window and killed her and just shot. I mean, she wasn't doing anything wrong. She was in a church parking lot. It wasn't even like she had anything illegal in the car or anything. She wasn't doing drugs. There was, I mean, not that that would justify it, but there was no excuse that they could even give, except that the cop, I think his hand got caught because he stuck his arm in the window or whatever in her face. Now, well, that's his fault for sticking his hand, in the window like that. Like, duh, common sense. But that and other stories and instances, little kids getting killed, teenagers getting killed, people started to realize, hey, wait a minute. This isn't just happening in the black community like people, like the powers that shouldn't be, would want me to believe. Oh, it's just a problem there because, those black people or, oh, those Latinos or all those Native Americans. No. It was all over. And people started to see it. And then Ferguson came about. And they changed the narrative. It became about black versus white. And that's the narrative that's been pushed. And unfortunately, people still buy into that. I know you guys have heard them, and I know you heard the piece I played, Think Outside the Box, where you get and Scott, I know I'm talking about. Ken, I'm talking about. The listeners even know what I'm talking about. And I said in that little video I made that they give you this illusion of choice. And I said this on air thousands of times, A or B. They have to simplify it. It's still Republican or Democrat. Left or right? Are you bad or good? Whose side are you on? So I have to pick a side? Yeah, which side? A or B? Which side do you stand on? Do you see they narrow everything down into two controlled choices, no matter what it is. And they control both sides. I mean, they control the Black Lives Matter movement, not meaning everybody there that attends those rallies is controlled. You only need the people that are organizing and in certain positions to be controlled. And then you just get everybody else amped up on their emotions. People who don't understand that they're being fed logical fallacies and that their emotions are being played. Naive people or very pissed off people in many instances.
Or that they got, this is in every facet of life. Everything from not only race, it's one side or the other. It's poor versus rich. Somebody who drives a certain car, here's a junker car, they suck. I'm driving in a good car. Or east side, west side, north, south. In every aspect, it seems, it's perpetuated through advertising, even about, how you look, how you dress. You can't have tattoos. You can't, you can't have piercings, or you're going to be put into this box. You have somebody looking at a homeless person even, and they're sitting there thinking, like, oh, look at this guy, get him out of the way. They don't understand the story behind it. There's this division. It's always pushing people to think that they're on the right side. They're on the winning side. They're on the side of righteous. It's always all the way down to sneakers, guys, to sneakers. Oh, they're more catfish right there. 3 strikes and you out. They ain't got the new Nike Air Jordans and stuff like that, to the degree that people go out and kill each other for those kinds of things. Shoes and all of these things. It's always this separation that is pushed by the mainstream media, by advertising, by the politicians, by everybody out there. It just seems to be a divide, not just in race. Race is just one. You got the sexes, man versus woman. You got that going on. You got, where you live, East Coast, West Coast, South. But then you have all of these things like the United States. Everybody looking at other countries going, you suck. And other countries looking at the United States going, you suck. Americans suck. Americans. And I heard that when in my travels around the world. Americans suck. They're always chewing bubble gum and they're on vacation. I heard that. I heard that when I was out there. I'm like, what in the world are you talking about? You're talking about 300 and some million people living in different environments, different that some are rich, some are poor, some are in poverty and all this stuff. It's like you cannot clump two sides. It's us versus them. Everybody's an individual, irreplaceable being out there who does see the world differently if they're allowed to. If they are allowed to. And I say allow because it's so pushed on them so much to fit in, like you said, into one side or the other, right wing, left wing, poor, rich, whatever it is. It's always this pressure, even to shows we watch, music we listen to is this forced on us. If you listen in your social groupings, if you listen to a certain a style of music, a genre of music, even, that music sucks. That music's no good. It's just like always divide. Everybody, even in the truth movement, and I call it the truth movement because everybody's searching for truth, quest for truth. Everybody's searching for truth, no matter what side of the fence you reside on, even within the truth movement. What do you think, the earth's flat or what's round, or, any of that? It doesn't matter. It's always this division there. What we talk about, people, I have subscribers and all of that always telling me, well, that's boring stuff. What? Nobody cares about that. Or, you should be talking about this. It's always this division that has been out there, and it's been around for thousands of years, and they've used it. And all they got to do is just push the button a little bit, push people in a new direction, start something, put something out through the mainstream media just for a little bit more divide. It's insane.
That's how we're controlled. It's through division. It's that simple. Okay, they know that combined, we are all way more powerful than they are. They understand this concept. It's not that hard of a concept to grasp. They get it. They know that. They don't want you to know that. They don't want Scott to know that. They don't want anybody out there listening to this broadcast or who hears it later on to understand that or know that. They don't want anyone, to know their true powers and their true potential, because then it's game over. It's that simple. It's game over for these people. And they don't want that, because then they lose relevancy. You see, the only reason why they have any power to even do any of this is because we give it to them. And people don't even realize that. They're, what are you talking about, Popeye? I didn't vote for this person. But we do. We acquiesce our power by not taking care of things ourselves. See, that's how we make these people irrelevant. You get rid of them by making them completely irrelevant. We solve all of our own problems. That's why I sign off my radio show with the solutions to our problems are an inside job. Because if people realize that simple truth, guess what? It's game over for these asshats in power. It's that simple. We won't need them anymore. They will be totally irrelevant. Think of things that have gone, lost their relevancy, which we no longer use anymore because of, technology has advanced or whatever, or we've changed our perspective on things. And that's all it really is a simple shift in perspective. If people realize their own true potential and their own true power, it's game over for these people. Hence, they have to get everybody sidetracked by being mad at each other. And you're correct. It's not just black versus white or race or anything like that. It's also sexuality, politics, video games, the kind of clothes you wear, which you brought up. That was, another way they divide people. Oh, you wear name brand stuff. Oh, you must be rich. Or you don't wear name brand stuff. When I was a kid, we didn't have a lot of money, and I got a lot of hand-me-downs, or my mom would get stuff from like the off-brand stores, and people would be like, "Oh, really?" I went to school with. I came from the blue-collar side of town, and my high school was in the white-collar side of town, you could say. And I went to school with kids that some of their parents, they turned 17 and they had a BMW. I had to wait a year for my first vehicle, and I had to go save the $2,000 to make it road ready, because it needed so much work. And I had to do the work myself. I had to buy like $2,000 in parts and do all that myself. And I had to save the money up. When I turned 17, I didn't have anybody hand me a vehicle, because we got in Jersey, we got our licenses when we were 17. I had to go do what I had to do on my own. Now, if more people just took some personal responsibility like that with other things, then the government would be irrelevant. I mean, who gets us into wars? Think about it. Who gets us into all these wars and possible World War III and, nuke devastation with A-bombs and everything going on? But who got us there? I know it wasn't you, Ken. Scott, I know it certainly wasn't you. I know I had nothing to do with it. And I'm pretty sure the old lady that lives next door to me didn't do anything to bring about World War III either. Who brought it about? These a-holes who run things, who are in the government or who have control of government. By the way, the word government literally means mind control. I'm not kidding. It's 2 Latin words.
Okay, then I might be anti-government then, Popeye.
Yeah, well, I said that before when you said I'm not anti-government. I thought I wanted to bring that up. It actually, the word means mind control. It comes from govern, which is like to govern, to control, and then ment is from mentis, mind. So to control the mind. That's what the word government actually means. And I don't need mind control.
Well, right. Well, when I think about government, I think about like a system of representatives. Because, like, personally, I don't want to take the time to talk to I don't want to do the trading, and all that stuff with other countries or anything like that. I don't want to handle anything like that. It's like, what do you have at a point that we're at right now? I mean, not where it should have been and stuff like that with individuals. I like the barter system personally, just from town to town, people to people. I got some eggs. You do plumbing. Okay, let me give you some eggs. You hook up my plumbing, that kind of thing. I like that. But in this world, I mean, really, how do we communicate without some form of something to be there? I mean, and, I lean towards, Emma Goldman, I do like her concept of anarchy, because it's different than what most people would ever think, or people who are self-prescribed anarchists would even think about. But I just wanted, I think that in this system, that if you had decent people up there handling the business, and you cut the form of the government, call them something else or whatever, representative, somebody that's going to talk to some other country and handle the business without being corrupt or something. Now, I could get behind that if it wasn't so corrupt. But, as far as the way the government's set up now, no way, But I'm just wanting to, because the way you said with that government, no, then I'm anti-government all day long. You put me on the list if you want to. I don't care. But as far as like, hey, a bunch of people look this guy. He knows a little bit. Hold up, buddy.
This whole thing off.
Okay, let Bubby hook it up for you, buddy. But if you want to vote one guy because he knows more about this country and has got a good relationship with them and he can handle a little business, I don't mind that. I just hate the whole corrupt thing. That's why I say I don't think I've ever seen in the history of time where there wasn't the corruption in any kind of forms of government. So I just want to clarify that. Sorry.
Well, the idea that a small group of individuals is needed to control the masses. Maybe back in the day we needed that. And I mean, I could understand to a certain degree looking at society now and what they have done to it and what they've done to humanity. In their mind's eye, they are actually trying to physically turn humanity into what they look at us as. They're trying to make us this dumbed down flock. So then they can literally say, look, humanity is garbage. We need to eradicate a certain amount of it. They're actually trying to make the case by creating the literal meme of it. You know what I mean?
Alrighty, we will be back on the flip side with Clown of the Week, and we will continue our conversation. I'm Kenneth Webb, Scott Lopez, and our brother Popeye.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
You're listening to Truth Frequency Radio.
We are TFR.
There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels
heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. We will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope.
And we are back. I'm Kenneth Webb, aka ChangeDaChannel, here on True Frequency Radio. With my man, co-host, Scott Lopez, and my brother from another mother, Popeye. And you know what, Scott? You know what time it is, right? It's that time.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, it is.
It's that time.
It is. It is time for Clown of the Week. And this week's Clown of the Week for me, and I didn't want to do it. Me and Scotty talked about it earlier, but I just could not help it, guys. I just could not help it at all. For me, and Scotty can give yours, and I'm sure Popeye going to take a Clown of the Week to the woodshed himself. But my Clown of the Week is Barack with a crock. Obama.
Ooh.
America is pretty darn great right now. America's making strides right now. America's better off than it was right now. The American people should be proud about what we've achieved together over the last 8 years since the recession hit. We're great right now. And what the folks who are running for office should be focused on is how we can make it even better. Not insults and schoolyard taunts and manufacturing facts. Not divisiveness along the lines of race or faith. Certainly not violence against other Americans or excluding them. We're a better country than that.
Now, I couldn't help. I was going through because I really wanted to make Clown of the Week a bunch of different people this week. And as I was going through the videos, I found this one he put out the other day, this past week. And I was just like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. Here's this guy putting it on Trump. And then again, I found myself taking up for Trump once again. But it's not about Trump, people. I promise you, I'm not going to vote for Trump. Okay? I'm not going to do it. But it's because of this turd had to come in and flap in his pie hole about how great America already is. Really? America is great. We're doing better off. And I'm like, really? You should have just kept your mouth shut, son. I'm telling you want to go for Clown of the Year your last year, because every time I turn around, he Clown of the Week. And it seems like it's going to be that way again because he's got to keep running his mouth. It's like, no, America's not greater. You know, he goes from one sentence talking about how great things are and then how divided we are. It's like, what? It's hypocrisy at its finest. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, and then all that stuff he was describing at the end, isn't that what he's been doing for 8 years? I mean, hasn't the country become the most divided it's ever been under his watch? He wants to talk about people dividing the country. I mean, he's probably done he's done more damage to relations amongst the American people and stoked up so much division than Trump could probably ever do. I mean, what a hypocrite, man.
What about you, Popeye? Do you got a Clown of the Week?
I have a few Clowns of the Week. I'd like to. How about I drop the bomb, so to speak, on the media, we'll say, as a whole. Some of the alternative, a large part of the alternative, and the mainstream in particular, from last week into, I guess, this week. The beginning of the weekend, Friday, was the 5-year anniversary of the meltdown at the Fukushima plant in Japan, and it was like you could have heard a pin drop across the planet. I mean, there were some people talking about it, but there wasn't as. I mean, it's 5 years. It's kind of a big deal. You know, it's a 5-year mark. There's a lot of things that, there's a lot of health issues and effects to the planet that we're seeing now, and that people had said in the beginning you'd see at the 5-year mark. Besides, it could be the 5-year anniversary of somebody joining, a group or something, or somebody doing something that means absolutely nothing, and the news media would be publicizing the hell out of it to waste your time and to get you to focus on it. But when it's something that's actually serious and detrimental to human health worldwide, as I said on Freaky Friday, you can only keep pissing in the snow globe before the snow globe becomes a urine-filled globe and it's no longer got water in it. And that's what we're doing to the planet. The planet's like an enclosed, encapsulated system. Radiation, pollution, doesn't matter what it is of any sort, doesn't just float off into outer space. It stays inside of our little enclosed system. And nobody's talking about it. And honestly, a lot of the problem is this election. All of this bread and circus, all of this bullshit that you see going on. Even Snoring Dog Monster in the background agrees with me. You could probably hear her snoring away and agreeing. It's all ridiculous. None of that matters. None of this crap matters in the grand scheme of things when you actually look at the real problems. And the real problems are so scary, nobody wants to focus on them. They want to take their focus away and they want to face something else. They'd rather deal with things that to them are less frightening and maybe more in their control. And I understand that. Maybe that's human nature, but yeah. So the mainstream media, wah, 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 and a good part of the alternative as well. We'll just say the media.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And, all this, bitching back and forth about, black versus white, all this division, none of that's going to matter because radiation does not discriminate. It'll kill everybody equally. And that's why on the 5th anniversary of Fukushima, I wrote a nice little status reminding everybody that that's still an issue. And but go watch football because let's just forget all about that.
If you ask people, they'll say it's cleaned up. You know that, right?
Right. Look at Chernobyl. We don't really even know the full effects from Chernobyl. Or
at least the Russians stopped Chernobyl.
But I mean, like the actual
Fukushima is still actually melting down. They haven't even the TEPCO says they can't. They don't have technology available right now to them. It doesn't exist on the planet to clean it up.
It's horrible.
Government, they're like, oh, it's stopped. It's cleaned up, right? No.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's been like that from the beginning, Pop. I remember at the beginning, following it? They kept saying, oh, it's all under control. It's like the BP oil spill. It's like, and Obama, remember him saying, oh, I'm all up on it. From day one, we were right on it. And, all of these stories about we wasn't is just utter lies. It's like how many gallons of oil is this thing leaking every day? And they just going around and around in circles. You hear 5, 6 different numbers. It's the same thing with Fukushima. It's like they just kept going, saying, it's all good. We got it under control as more things were melted down, more wars dumping into the oceans. I mean, all this thing. And you brought this up the last week. I don't remember if it was on Freaky Friday or if it was on your show Wednesday that why somebody posing the question, why hasn't it killed everybody in Japan? Kind of thing. And I think it's very important for people to realize it's like a cigarette. Smoking one cigarette doesn't kill you. But if you continuously smoke cigarettes, for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It's not if, it's when. If nothing else gets you, that is going to do something to you. There's no way around it. And when they first came, what was it, a couple of months afterwards, Obama raised the accepted radiation levels. I mean, this thing is big, as you say, and there is no doubt about it. And it's having effects worldwide. And what reason why I brought up Chernobyl is like they cemented it in and what they did. But what was the whole effect around the world? It might have been small on, around here in the United States, but there was some effect because of these things happening. Now, this Fukushima, they have just, it's got to be by design too, because else what got me about Fukushima is why in the world did they not send the top scientists from around the world? Now, you got Japan, they're our allies. They're our allies now, they're our buddies, our pals. Why wouldn't we have sent the best and brightest from all around the world to go and remedy this situation instead of, them saying, we got it under control, everything's great, blah, 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 when it wasn't and still isn't? What long-term effects is this going to have? And the reason why people, I think, out there don't really realize it, because it's not an immediate threat to them. They're not choking over and dying. And if you're not choking over and dying, and it hadn't reached your doorstep, in that capacity, people don't care. But what do you think, Popeye, is going to be the long lasting? Because we haven't seen the end of it yet. That's the thing. And what do you think over 10, 20 years? We're going to see not just in Japan, but like out here in this country along the West Coast, because we've already seen the animals dying, just the mutations and everything else that's going on, and just the shutting down. The mainstream media is not talking about it. The politicians aren't concerned with it. Like, hey, let's just raise the level up and we're all safe. It's all good for you. What do you see happening with this? Seriously?
Well, a lot of the people that are in power don't understand radiation either. Just because you're a president or you're a politician or you're a member of a cabinet, like a presidential cabinet, does not mean that you actually understand what radiation is. I would make a safe bet that probably 95% of the people in the government don't. All right, I take that back. Maybe like 85% of the people in the government don't have a full understanding of what radiation is unless that's part of their everyday job.
But do you think if it happened, let's say, it's hard to do on the Atlantic Ocean, but say the East Coast would have been as affected as our West Coast has been?
Well, I think the whole country's affected. Everything's affected. If you go look up the Rad Chicks put up a bunch of information. You should go watch her. Go to her YouTube channel. Everybody that's listening, go over to YouTube and go look up Radchick, RADCHICK on YouTube, and you'll see she's got like an old pinup. It's from like Miss Atomic Bomb or Miss Hydrogen Bomb or whatever. I'm not kidding. They actually had like beauty pageants like that, and that's the avatar for her YouTube channel. You can't miss it. Just Radchick channel on YouTube. Find and it'll come up. And she's been working on this for years, and she's put out videos about this, showing the fallout and where it hit in days. And there's other researchers too that have done great work exposing this stuff over the past years. But the reason I say the thing about the government not understanding radiation is because they themselves, if they actually truly had a comprehension of it, would understand that no matter where they think they can hide, they can't. Radiation doesn't understand borders or boundaries. And even if you think you're behind a wall, that don't worry, radioactivity can't get through it. It will.
Well, why do you think that they, especially the real elite turds, don't put much concern into it? Now, we can see the effects, so we know there's effects, and we know it's doing stuff. But what is the reasoning you think is behind? Do they got a shot or something? The anti-radiation shot? That wouldn't surprise me at all. But their reason for non-concern.
I don't think they really understand it. I not until recently did I understood, high doses of radiation cause cancer and everything, but especially within the past year, my brain has exploded with the amount of information that comes from just the conversations that I have with Radchik about this.
We got to get her on the show about that.
She's very knowledgeable and very intelligent on the subject. On everything, but she's the amount of information that she's got on radiation, Fukushima, just blow your mind. But I'm working on putting together something to get a good visual for people so they can have a better understanding. Because I think if people saw radiation, they would be a little bit more in tune to paying attention to it than they do now. And again, they'd have a better understanding of how it affects you. People can't see it. Like, you can see a flood coming down, like a tsunami. You can see fire. You can see tornadoes. You can see the earth cracking if there's an earthquake. You can even feel it. But you cannot see it, smell it, taste it, meaning radiation. Yes, you get the metallic taste in your mouth and things like that with certain isotopes. But overall, you can't really, your senses don't pick it up. Our senses... It kind of eludes our senses, especially our visual sense. And if people could actually see what radiation happens, what's going on when an isotope is emitting radiation, and I mean one little particle of whatever isotope. Okay, just look up radioactive isotopes in cloud chambers on YouTube, and you'll see these things pinging inside the cloud chambers, and it looks like little explosions. And that's one particle of a radioactive isotope of some sort or whatever, and it's going off, and you see it emitting radiation. Now, think about that. That's one particle. People hearing this can go look this up, okay? That's one particle emitting radiation and going off like a little bomb. Pow, 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 pow. Now, imagine all the particles of radiation that are all over the place, from all the atomic testing, from all the nuke plants leaking, from like in St. Louis, them burying the radioactive waste from the Manhattan Project like they don't care. Just put some barrels into the dirt and roll dirt on it, because the barrels won't break down eventually due to the exposure to radioactivity and then leak all of that crap into the ground. No, that's fine.
And they've been doing that for decades. I went down for a protest at Shoshone Land at the Nevada nuclear test site, and they during the Bush era, and that's what they were doing, rolling more of those barrels in to bury, and they were taking more land from Shoshone Indians, and they talked about all the birth defects and everything from down there. I mean, and it's pretty crazy because you take that in consideration with the entire world, everywhere where they're doing it. Everywhere where they had these disasters and everything, and it's unfathomable. Like, when we die, we're really not gonna know what got us. We're really not. Was it the Doritos I've been eating for 40, 50 years? Was it, what was it? Radiation? I mean, just so much stuff.
Oh yeah, it's crazy, and going back to what Popeye was saying about not being able to see it and trying to communicate to people how dangerous it is. It's the same trying to explain to somebody how dangerous fluoride is. You can't see it in the water. GMOs, you don't see it in your food, really. Things like this, things like that it's an invisible killer that's like a slow burn over time. And unless something is immediately happening, it's much more shocking when you see somebody fall over and and just die or get some sort of a traumatic death happening. But if it's killing you later on, in your 60s, you get a rapid cancer and you die. People don't really pay attention to that because it's not affecting them at that moment. And so they just kind of blow it off. It's like you said, what is it that's going to kill me? What is it? The GMO corn in my Doritos? Is it the cigarettes I've been smoking? Is it the and then you got the radiation now. It's crazy.
It's our ignorance to what's in those foods and in those products and in the air and water around us. Now, ignorance, and when I say ignorance, I'm using the actual definitive word. See, when I use words, ladies and gentlemen, I actually use the word in the actual meaning, not what society or pop culture or the powers that shouldn't be want you to think the word means. Okay, just so because I sometimes I say other words too, and people get pissed off at me. They're like, "Well, how do you mean that word?" I'm like, "Well, in the definitive, the way that you look it up in Webster's dictionary."
Yeah.
So, no, look, this is all crazy, man. This is absolutely crazy what's going on, but it's our ignorance to it that is what is going to kill us. If we're not, if we're more in touch with what's going on around us, if we're aware, then we can do something about it. See, I don't tell people this stuff for people to be, all doom, gloom, and like end of the road, we're done. That's not me. You know me. Okay. You know that I believe that we can accomplish and solve anything that we need to, but we actually have to focus on it. The reason we don't have the technology to clean up the meltdowns is because we're too busy focusing, our all of our energy and money and manpower and some of the greatest minds to build weaponry and to do all this other dark, evil crap that they do. Why are we not coming together as a planet? You mean to tell me that collectively, with like the 6 billion people that are on this planet, 6 or 7 billion, you're going to tell me we can't solve this? We can't figure this out?
I mean, for instance, even on I don't know the cost perspective, but it's like you said about the BP oil spill the other week too, Popeye. It's like we have the capability. So, I mean, even from technology perspective of what we could do, just knowing what I know, and I'm not no rocket scientist. I don't know much about as far as the technology it goes into getting rid of nuclear stuff. But wouldn't it just, here's an idea off the top of my uneducated on the topic head. Why can't you just load it up, all the stuff on a daggone rocket ship, launch it out into space? Okay, then just think about this. Now I ain't saying we already junking up space with satellites and space junk around the planet, but instead of sticking it in the ground here around us, doing all the things that they do, just all of this disposable crap that's toxic, why don't they just put it on a rocket ship and shoot it out into space and that's it? Now, I'm not saying that's the proper way to do it. I'm sure with the bright minds that we have in this country or this world that we couldn't come up with a better solution for it. But at least I would figure that would be the first thing, to get it as far away from us as we can.
Theoretically, the only thing you can really do with it is put it on a rocket and shoot it into the sun. Here's the problem with that. And I thought about this, and I had the same thought. And I actually said this to Ratchik one day. I said, why don't, you'd think we could just put it into the sun. She looked at me and said, yeah, how about we get a satellite into outer space without it exploding first? And I was like, oh, well, there's that. Think about if they took all that waste and they put it in rockets and a couple of them blow up on their way up. Now all of that is in the atmosphere, as if we don't have enough in the atmosphere. And by the way, the stuff from the atomic weapons tests is still floating around in the atmosphere. There's something like 80 or 85% of it. I forget, it's around in the 80 percentile range of the crap that the radioactive isotopes and the particles that were ejected into the atmosphere during the atomic bomb tests is still up there.
Yeah, it's the strontium that goes into the upper atmosphere, and it goes above the weather layer, so it stays up there.
Yeah, I've seen the stuff.
Scott, once you piss in the snow globe too many times, buddy. What have I said?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. But I've seen depleted uranium. The effects of depleted uranium, they wouldn't let the Iraqis clean up, and all the birth defects and all the effects it had on soldiers that were around there, being sterilized and stuff like this. And this is depleted uranium. Right? I mean, just it blows my mind how we don't just come up with a better solution, but it's not cost efficient. Oh, we'll just take it and throw it in some barrels and throw it in the ground. Or like Fukushima, ain't nothing to see here. It's all cool in the gang. We're handling it. And they're going to go on about their business. It's absolutely insane. But we're coming up on the break, gentlemen. God, so fast. This is a fast show. This is actually the fastest show that I believe I've had since being back.
By the way,
it's the beard, man. It's the beard.
It's the beard.
Warping time, man.
Thank you for having the courage to actually have a real conversation about this subject. It more and more people can need to have these type conversations. So if they see us having a conversation about this a problem of this proportion in a very calm and rational manner, that's how we solve problems. So just saying.
Absolutely, brother. Couldn't say it better myself. Well, we're gonna catch you guys on the flip side of the break for the last 30 minutes fast show with my co-host Scott Lopez and my brother from another mother, Popeye.
Freaky Friday with the Woo Crew. Fridays on Truth Frequency Radio.
There must be some kind of way out of here. Said the joker to the thief. There's too much confusion. I can't get no relief. Businessman there, drink my wine. Plowman, dig my earth. None will ever own the mine.
Oh, man. See, I could let that play on and on. Every time I hear some old Jimmy that I ain't heard in a while. Anyway, we are back. I'm Kenneth Webb, a.k.a. ChangeDaChannel, along with my co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, Scott Lopez, and my brother from another mother, Popeye. And you know what time it is, guys? Oh, should we wrap this up? Let's do half this segment, and then we're going to have to wrap it up with a digging in the hat. Since we got Popeye on, we got to dig in the hat. But anything you guys wanted to finish off the what we were talking about with all of the radiation and all of the poisoning, because that's a big tactic, I think. I mean, really is. If they don't care about it or they don't know about it, somebody knows about it, and they're not really caring about the effects it has on the land, the life on the planet. They don't really care about it. So it's kind of like another tactic that they have used to kill us off, dumb us down, and everything else. I mean, from chemtrails to the water to the vaccinations to big pharma, they just don't seem to care. Any wrap-ups you guys want to talk about on this?
Well, I just want to say that, Popeye had said, a lot of people in government don't really understand radiation, but, I guess obviously Hillary does, because some of her emails came out of her expressing her concern about how serious the situation really was. So, that's part of her little email scandal too about... I
haven't seen that one. Do you got the link? Put it in your chat room. You in your chat room? Put it in the chat room for everybody to see, because I'd like to see this too.
I think Popeye would probably have the information on that.
Yeah, Christina wrote an article for the 5-year about it, and she did a video about it, and she actually tweeted them out when she found them on Cryptome. I don't know, like 2 weeks ago, a week or two ago. She tweeted them out and she posted them, and it's Hillary, her emails, and you can. This came out, from her email scandal and everything. And the emails are her talking about, right after Fukushima, I'm not going outside. I'll be spending a couple weeks indoors, or, a month indoors, or whatever it was she said. Meanwhile, they're telling everybody to go outside and then, to breathe and swim and to go ahead, and the air is safe and everything, and radiation is okay for you. And anybody that tells you otherwise is just trying to scare you. I mean, so it goes to show you she's a liar. Oh, and by the way, see all the coughing she's having lately? Yeah. She flew a lot after that. Remember, not only do you have all those radioactive isotopes up in the air, but as Christina has pointed out in her research that she did, trying to explain with Lorraine Murray and Lawrence Batiste that what the Wigner effect is, which is this, it's what happens when metals, your body, anything is exposed to radiation, what it does over the course of time. So, I mean, if Hillary's flying around all the time, right, and she's in the upper atmosphere, which you're already getting irradiated by on a flight going back and forth across country, you get, I forget the equivalent of the amount of x-rays, but you're getting exposed to radiation. And newsflash, so people understand when they go, well, low levels of radiation don't matter. Well, yes, they do for different reasons. And there have been studies, and I've posted stuff about this before, how even low levels of radiation are harmful. But if you try to picture in your mind's eye, your body like a measuring cup, right? And every time you're exposed to radiation, you're filling that measuring cup more and more and more. Well, instead of it being, 1 cup, 2 cup, 3 cups, it's percentages. And it's percentages of you getting cancer or some other weird disease because of this, because of your exposure to radiation. And the more, like leukemia or something like that, the more radiation exposure you get, the higher your percentage and chances of getting said disease are. So even low levels of radiation are bad for you. But while you're flying in the upper air, in the upper atmosphere, you're already getting exposed to radiation, right? Well, now you have all this radiation that's up there from Fukushima, and it's ongoing. It spews stuff into the outside surrounding air, the seawater, everything on a daily basis. And look, the problem with Fukushima is they haven't literally shut it off. They haven't stopped it from melting down. And the cores are sitting underneath the plants. And then, of course, not only do you have the problem with they have contaminated water that they dump into the ocean, which is what they tell people is the problem. The bigger problem is they diked up a river and moved it in order to build that plant there. The plant is actually built at like the mouth of this old river. So you realize that there's still underground rivers that flow because the water naturally flows down, and there's mountains, further inland. So it's almost sloped. The ground is sloped to a degree towards the ocean. All that rainwater and stuff, you have all this groundwater that moves through the ground on a daily basis. Thousands and thousands and thousands of tons of it. Okay? Well, the corium is sitting in the ground. So the groundwater is moving through, getting irradiated, and then going out to the sea. That's where the high levels of contamination are coming from. Yeah, they're dumping radioactive water, and that's bad too. But the radioactive groundwater on a daily basis is an even bigger problem, and nobody's talking about it.
Yeah, it's the underwater table that's leaching down underneath, and then it's, like you said, it's sloping, and then it's escaping into the ocean.
And people are going to die. People are dying. Like I said on Freaky Friday, a lot of the workers are dying at Fukushima, but you don't hear about that because the Yakuza own TEPCO, and they'll go and they'll grab homeless people off the street or people that owe them money for debts, and they make them work in Fukushima. And they don't care.
Yeah, and that's another reason why Japan never let any international teams come in and try to, mitigate this problem, is because people would then look into the business practice of everything and see, oh, wow, this is ran by a mafia. You know what I mean? And, what kind of safety precautions are actually taken there. They had a lot of incentive to try to protect their own asses, basically, and keep outsiders from coming in and looking at the actual problem that had been going on there for years. Can you imagine all the investigations and all kinds of crap that would have got the Yakuza involved in, say, hey, this is a criminal enterprise running a nuclear power plant, and plus the Japanese culture anyways, they don't like outsiders coming in. They're very kind of isolationist when it comes to their culture, and they don't, they should let people come in and solve the problem, but they're not, they won't do that.
If the United Nations was actually doing what it was supposed to do, then instead of getting involved in everybody's backyard and invading people and blah, 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 right? Don't you think maybe the United Nations should have taken a look at this situation and said, Japan, you guys really don't have things under control. I mean, look, 5 years on,
if the UN actually wanted to do something, if they wanted to actually do something decent, then they could have at least done that.
They could. I mean, you don't hear. Well, nobody talks about it. So again, and I know that it has been covered up. I mean, the Japan passed what is it? The secrecy? Is it the Secrecy Act or something like that? Whatever. I can't remember the exact title of it is, but basically, you can't. They passed a law. You can't talk about Fukushima. Period. So people can't come out in Japan. They just made it against the law for them to speak about what's going on.
Could go mugger.
I mean,
really?
Yeah, go. I'm not kidding. You go look this up. It's ridiculous. Look, here's the issue. Okay, it's real simple. The nuke lobby itself, the nuke industry, is very, very powerful, extremely powerful, and obviously they have their fingers all the way, very deep into the military-industrial complex. If I explain, the guy that was responsible for getting fluoride in the water supply, one of the people, the guy that was in charge of the program of putting it in the water supply, and I forget his name right now off the top of my head, but he's the same dude that injected pregnant women with plutonium. You have no idea the heinous things that they have done in the name of medicine.
And imagine, that's the thing. And we see this through declassified government documents. We see this all out from what they did. Imagine what they're doing right now. We can only guess with chemtrails and stuff. We can see some things, but imagine as quoting from, our buddy Rumsfeld, the unknown unknowns.
And there are a lot of people, the people that live all around there are dead. Many of them just don't realize it yet. Radiation, high levels of it kills you. I mean, that's why they can't get... Christina was telling me there's certain sections of the plant where they walk around, the guys have to walk around with poles. And they have Geiger counters on these 30, 40 foot long poles or however long they are. And, because they walk around at maybe 20 feet, however long they are, they walk around with these poles. And because there's certain sections where it's pockets of radiation or whatever, just higher in that area. And it's so high that if you walk into it, you'll just die because the radiation will actually affect the electrical signals in your body. It'll scramble your circuitry, basically, just like it does to the robots that they send in. It does the same thing to the human body.
Didn't Luke went out there not too long ago?
Yeah, I know. Luke went out there and by the exclusion zone, and it was not really a good idea. That's a dangerous area to be in. Again, people don't understand the levels of what radiation looks like. If I know they people understand to a degree, it's dangerous, it's bad. And Luke did some great videos, and he did some great videography. But the reason I say it wasn't a good idea is because he's my friend, and he put himself at risk, and I wouldn't want to see him get hurt. But it's very dangerous if you have a visual of what radiation looks like when a particle is going off. You can close your eyes and imagine everything covered in radioactive particulate going off like that, right? And you can imagine all around us. It's like Neo in the end of the Matrix. He can see the code. Well, now you can honestly see the radiation being emitted by all this crap, and you can see just how non-clean energy nuke really is. People love to tout, I've seen the green movement and others touting nuke as the new clean energy, and I'm like, no, it's not. If you understood radiation, you're either paid off, and obviously the people at the very top of that are controlled. But if people had a better understanding, they wouldn't be able to be controlled. There's certain basic truths, and they are trying, through their mind control and stuff, to twist the basics as well. And I've talked about that before. But there are basic truths that are really hard to, once people see them, it's hard to get that one back in the box. You know what I mean? It's hard to bottle that genie. And one of those things is the understanding of radiation as a whole. So if people actually understand how dangerous and detrimental it is, not just because of the word or because I say so, but because you could actually see. That's why I tell people, go look up the cloud chamber videos. Look at a radioactive isotope, one particle going off in a cloud chamber, and think about it. That's going on all around you. You can't. What are you going to do? You can't remediate the entire country or everything. You can't. I said this on Friday to quote a great anti-nuke activist, Mimi Gurman. You can't scrub a rock, meaning there's tiny pebbles, there's tiny stones all over the place. Everything is covered in radioactive particulate of some sort to a degree or another in one area or another. I mean, it depends on, and some of it they'll say, well, it's naturally occurring radiation. When they dig up and they do the phosphate mining here in Florida, they end up digging up all sorts of crap, and they end up having radioactive particulate in the fertilizer, and a lot of that is quote unquote natural, right? But it's still radioactive. So it doesn't, because it came from the earth or because man made it, it doesn't really matter if it's radioactive. It's still doing the same thing. It's not like natural radiation is like, oh, human, oh, you're natural, we're cool, we're buddies. And then the other radiation is like, I'm the bad radiation. That's not how it works. When it's going through you and bombarding your body, it's causing mutations. That's how you get cancer. That's how you get sick. That's what happens. So it's mutating you. That's why, to answer your question before, like, do they have a shot for it? I mean, I don't know what kind of shot they could have that could mitigate the damage from it, because it's so crazy how it damages you.
Well, I mean, like people like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers.
Maybe they're genetically manipulated to
freaking lizard aliens or some crap.
Godzilla was a lizard, and Godzilla has radioactive fire, right? So maybe if they're reptilian, maybe because of the lizardness, maybe they can, who knows? And I say that, half jokingly, but no, I mean, I don't know. To answer your question honestly, like, why would they spray the skies and put all that? Again, we live in a snow globe. These people have to have, I mean, I know the people that work for them are highly intelligent, and many of them are way more intelligent than we give them credit for. So they have to have an understanding that, like, okay, again, we're in an enclosed environment. We're in a snow globe. We're in a biosphere. You can't keep pissing in it. You can't keep putting radioactivity and pollution and all sorts of bullshit into it and think it's going to float off into outer space. See, I think that's what people really think. Like, that they think like pollution just goes away. Oh, the solution to pollution is dilution. We live in a closed system. You can only pollute a closed system so much before it becomes unusable. And in this case, it's a biosphere. So guess what that means? Life ends. Done. Game over. That's what that means.
We are some junky cats, though, here on this planet. I mean, think about it. Without Fukushima, let's take this out of the equation. Let's take all the stuff they put in their waters. Just think about all of the junk we dump in the ocean alone, without any of the BP oil spills, any leaks, any radiation. I mean, Jesus, think about it. I mean, even planes fly over and they dump their daggone urinals and all that stuff. They pee in the globe again, like you said, in the snow globe, Popeye, dumping out all the waste into the oceans. I mean, it's just insane. You go along the river lines of the United States, James River, where are all the major industrial plants at? Where are the naval nuclear plants at, like B&W and places like that, right by the river that goes to the ocean? I mean, it's just like, wow, we are just a nasty, nasty group of species on this planet for just making all this stuff that we can't unmake, making all this stuff that we got to find how to get rid of, and we not even doing it correctly. We're just dumping it. Let's dump it in the water. There's a lot of water out there. Heck, let's just dump it into there. I mean, sooner or later, come on.
Look at the Look at the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. I mean, it covers an area, I think, the size of Texas.
I heard that was fake. I had people say that was fake. Now, I have not ever seen this with my own eyes, but I have seen the trash and stuff washed along the shorelines of all the coast in different countries all around the world. And that
it's not. It ain't fake. I mean, it's not like the garbage is clumped together so densely to where it just looks like a patch the size of Texas, but it's spread out in an area about the size of Texas, and it's where these Pacific currents, they flow in a way where the water just kind of churns in that area in a circle. So all the garbage collects in there and it doesn't really escape because, it just kind of is going in a circle around this, massive area.
Yeah, and all the stuff that we make, disposable stuff. We don't even make, humans don't even make stuff that can be reused. It's like disposable lighters, the computers. Look at the longevity of just like, a $200 or $300 computer. I mean, you're going to be in that thing's going to eat up. Next thing you know, it's going to be in the garbage somewhere, getting shipped to China where they're going to melt it down for all of the different stuff in there. I mean, it's just nasty the way we just junk up everything. And that's aside from all the nuclear tests, all of it really blows my mind that people aren't sitting back. We should take care of global warming, this thing, and they want to cure that by making a tax, or a carbon tax and carbon credits and trading them. Geez, I know that's not building the machine. Let's say,
how does giving Al Gore money and his a-hole crony friends money and the government money, how did giving these people money solve any problems?
Exactly.
Last time I checked, they don't solve anything. They just create more chaos.
Exactly. And they should even do it better. That shows you where we are as a society when they can do stuff like that, and we don't even pay attention to it. And you got people going, global warming, the crisis, we need carbon tax and credits and all this stuff. It's like, have you really looked at how that whole thing's planned out? Okay, first off,
changing, but I don't think it's because of cow farts and Aquanet hairspray.
Yeah, oh no, and that's the thing. Maybe there is some kind of change. Okay, well, yeah, that's fine. Okay, I'll go along with anything because I think that we lost track with trying to on the Al Gore thing. And we didn't look at, it's called pollution. We're junking up everything everywhere, and we need to do something about that. The air sucks. Look around in any major city, it sucks. Air quality sucks. There's junk all over the place. They're spraying us with all this stuff, shooting us up with all this stuff. Water sucks so bad that we're sitting here and we have grown accustomed to drinking bottled water. We're drinking bottled water out of a freaking bottle that we buy from the store. Air's coming next, people. I mean, it is. You got to pay for air now.
Like in Spaceballs, Perry Air.
Yeah. It's gonna be that and all this stuff. It's like, and the solution is, okay, you got to pay a carbon tax, but we're gonna have this carbon trading thing up to where these corporations can open up a green company, gain all of these carbon credits, and sell them to their polluting companies and all of this stuff to get them off the hook without even have to pay anything. And the thing is, like, if you want to talk pollution, let's chip in the pot. I got no problem with that. To clean up this junk, man, I chip in. If I got 5 on it, I really would. And I would understand, but like, hey, let's all the world pitch in the pot. Let's try to do something about it. Let's build a machine that takes care of this. But that's not their solution. So I don't believe in that bigger problem. Before the government even said anything about global warming, they was like, well, we don't know. It's still out there. We don't know if it's global warming. I was kind of like, yep, there must be global warming going on. As soon as those terrorists turned around, flipped the script and said, yes, there's global warming, and they came out with excuses, I'm like, I don't know about it. Because like I said, I always say it, the government I could walk outside in the sunshine. I could feel it beams radiating off my face. I could feel the warmth of it. And the government say the sun is shining on you, Kenneth Webb. Change the channel. Sun shining on you. And I'm going to question it. Something's wrong. Their sun ain't shining on me. That's and it's because of their resume. They're full of it. If they really wanted to do something about it, then yes. Stop all them cars. Okay, let's just do away with the cars, period. If it's that much of a problem, hey, and it's the end of the world kind of scenarios they push, let's stop all traffic.
They'd love to do that because, well, to a degree, because then you wouldn't be able to travel.
Yeah, but the thing is, then they wouldn't be able to move all of it and shifting around and all that crap.
I agree.
Yeah, but I mean, a real solution instead of going like, well, we're going to have this carbon credit trade and
they don't want a solution. I mean, half the time it's them polluting. They don't give a crap. I mean, think about it. That's why they buy, places in like, the Southern Hemisphere or whatever, but you can't run. It's a biosphere. You can't run from it. You can only run from it so long and it's going to catch up to you. It's like a metaphor for life. You know how you go, if you're having a conversation, somebody who tries to run away from their problems rather than face them. You're trying to help them and you say, look, you can't run from your issues and you can't run from your problems because they'll catch up to you. Well, it's the same thing with pollution of any sort, whether it's radioactive, oil, garbage. Oh, no, we're going to clean it. Look, they cleaned up the Gulf of Mexico, right? Really? There's a dead zone and all the oil is on the bottom.
So in the last couple of minutes, Pop, I want to get you and Scott's take on this. With what we're talking about, and we'll put off that hat until next week. I wanted to get it with you in the end, but we're going to do, we ain't got but a couple of minutes, and I wanted to get y'all's take on this. What do you think their end game is? Like we were talking, is there a shot or something these people can take? They got to have the elite top dogs, and I'm not talking about the presidents, the politicians, or any of these cats. I'm talking about what plans would they have to live their life and their family's life and leave their children, I mean, with all of this stuff?
It's a good question. It really is.
Yeah,
I've
is a
asked
good
myself
question.
the question multiple times. How do they not see that they're going to kill themselves?
They got to see.
The only thing that explains it is either A, they have access to some technology that we don't, which we obviously know in many cases that's already the truth, or maybe it's one of three choices that I could think of at the top of my head. That one, the next one being that they're maybe they do have there's some sort of reptilian alien hybrid, something that's immune to it, right? Like some people think. Or perhaps maybe they have access to, interdimensional technology, and that could be from whatever source. That could be a whole, 3-hour Freaky Friday episode just on that topic alone. The point is, unless you go into the woo like that, if you think about it logically from what we know,
or maybe they just don't care.
The same fate. Maybe they just did. Maybe they just don't care. There you go, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, look at the stuff that they believe in. They believe in death and all that anyway. So maybe they just want to bring the earth down.
We're gonna definitely have to continue this conversation at another time because this is a really good one. You could do a whole segment, but we are running out of time. But I want to thank Popeye. federaljack.com, Down the Rabbit Hole, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific time. And what was you and Rad Chick's YouTube channel, brother?
Clean Rad Eye.
Right on. Scott Lopez and Kenneth Webb, a.k.a. ChangeDaChannel. We will catch y'all next week, same time, same